Relatively recently, Amazon launched a brand new version of its Kindle Paperwhite e-reader, one of the most popular series of e-readers it's ever launched. It brings with it a bigger, fancier display, so should you upgrade from your old Paperwhite, and perhaps as crucially, should you spend the extra on this or go with the bog standard Kindle? I'm Cam Bunton from Pocket-lint, and in this video I'll explain all. And while you're here, if you could tap like, subscribe and the notification bell, that would be lovely. So here we have three Kindles in different colours to make it easier to tell them apart. The white model is the latest bog standard Kindle, the green is the previous generation Paperwhite from 2018, and the black model is the all-new Paperwhite for 2021. Starting off, let's talk about design, and talking broad strokes here, the three models are all very similar in appearance. They're all plastic, with rounded corners and edges to make them comfortable to hold. None of them have any physical buttons apart from the power wake button on the bottom edge. Of course, the first and most noticeable difference between the new Paperwhite and either of the other two is the size. It's noticeably larger than the last Paperwhite, which itself is slightly bigger than the regular Kindle, even though the two have the same 6-inch display. That's because the regular Kindle actually has slimmer bezels than the previous generation of Paperwhite, while the new Paperwhite model has even slimmer bezels still, and that means Amazon has been able to put in a larger 6.8-inch screen into it. But I'll go into a bit more depth on the displays a bit later on. Of the three, the newest Paperwhite is also the slimmest, but there's not really much in it. It's also the heaviest, and the only one to break the 200-gram barrier. Still, it's hardly heavy. There are other differences too. For instance, the fit and the finish of the Paperwhites just seems that bit higher than the standard Kindle. Its plastic rear cover feels rougher to the touch, and there's a line all the way around where you can see the front bezel has been attached to the rear casing. The Paperwhites have a much more seamless appearance, and they have a softer finish on the back as well, and that makes them a bit nicer to hold. Similarly, on the front, the two Paperwhites have a single flush surface, where the regular Kindle's frame is raised from the display, leaving a bit of a gap for tiny bits of dust and fluff to get in. It also means you can feel it when you go to press or swipe on certain parts of the screen near the edges. And when it comes to holding them one-handed, the nicest of the three is the old Paperwhite. It has a nice soft texture, and because it's smaller, it's a bit more comfortable to grip than the new model. Still, the new model is crucially smaller and much slimmer than an actual book, so is far from being uncomfortable. Now, one big plus for the new Paperwhite is the USB Type-C port on the bottom edge. The other two use micro USB, which by now is a very old and outdated connection. If you buy the new Paperwhite, you can charge it using the same cable as your smartphone, earphones and the like. Now onto the displays, and this is probably the biggest reason why you might choose the new Paperwhite over either of the other two. Firstly, it's bigger. 0.8 inches may not seem like much, but because it's noticeably taller and wider than the 6-inch screen on either of the other two, it fits more in. As an example, with both of these models on the same page with the text set to the same size, with the same spacing and font style, there are just over 5 more lines of text. That's a considerable difference. And that's not the only benefit of the new screen either. Its backlight system has been updated to include 16 lights, more than triple the 5-light system on the old Paperwhite and 4-light system on the standard Kindle. That's enabled a warmth feature that allows you to adjust the temperature of the light, so you can have it as cool and blue or as warm and orange as you'd like it to be. What's more, you can schedule the warm light feature to come on at a specific time of each day. The other thing worth noting is that both Paperwhite models also have a dark mode switch available, turning the screen black and the text white. It can be handy at night time to reduce glare. As for sharpness, both the Paperwhites win here too. At 300 pixels per inch, they're considerably sharper than the cheapest bog standard Kindle, which is 167 pixels per inch. And that means when you put finer text on screen, it's easier to read, and if you look closely, text on the cheapest Kindle does look a bit rough and pixelated. So let's talk other specs and options, and first up, battery life. No surprise here that the bigger Kindle has the longest battery life. It can go up to 10 weeks on a full charge, while its predecessor, the previous Paperwhite, goes 6 weeks, and the basic Kindle goes up to 4 weeks. All of them come with 8 GB of storage as the standard option, which is more than enough for most people and gives enough space to download thousands of books. However, there is a 32GB version of the older Paperwhite, and there's also a 32GB version of the new one, but that's the more expensive Signature Edition, which also has wireless charging built in. The one area I think is appealing for the previous generation of Kindle Paperwhite is the colour options. It comes in black, green, plum and blue, while the standard Kindle is black or white and the new Paperwhite currently is only black. However, it does come as a kids edition like the standard Kindle. These editions cost a little bit more but are essentially the same as the basic ones, they just include a colourful case and a year's subscription of Kids Plus included. In the end, there are a couple of things that really stick out for me when it comes to comparing these models. Firstly, it took me by surprise how many differences I found with the cheapest model, especially around the design and the build and the display, but given its pricing it does make sense. At its price point, it still does what it needs to do and is a great buy. Second, how much of an improved experience it is going from the older Paperwhite to the new one. It has longer battery life, a bigger screen, a Type-C port, which is a big deal to me, and also the screen temperature adjustment. All of those, to me, not only lead me to believe it's easily the best of the three, but I'd actually upgrade from the old Paperwhite to this one. So there you have it, a quick comparison and a guide to the differences between the new Paperwhite, the old Paperwhite, and the current bog standard Kindle. If you found this useful, please do leave a thumbs up, subscribe and tap the notification bell, and that way you don't miss many more of our uploads. I'll see you again in the next one. Bye for now.